The rain fell in relentless sheets over Atlanta, Georgia, a city where dreams rose as high as its skyline and fell just as fast in neighborhoods the towers forgot. In a fifth-floor walk-up on the edge of Old Fourth Ward, where the elevator had been broken for 3 months and the hallway still smelled of last week's grease fire, Maya Brooks sat cross-legged on the floor beside her daughter's crib, counting coins from a coffee tin like they were prayer beads. The air was thick with humidity and the faint powder scent of baby wipes. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, each rumble a percussion to her mounting panic. Inside, the silence was fractured by 6-month-old Amira's soft whimpers, the hungry sound that had become the soundtrack to Maya's sleepless nights. Her hands trembled as she sorted the quarters and dimes, her fingers moving with the mechanical precision of someone who had done this too many times before. At 29, Maya's dark eyes carried shadows that makeup couldn't hide anymore. Exhaustion etched into the delicate skin beneath them, the weight of responsibility aging her beyond her years. Her natural curls, gathered into a hasty bun with a rubber band salvaged from junk mail, framed a face that once lit up lecture halls at Georgia State, back when she believed her nursing degree would be the bridge between poverty and possibility. Now her world had narrowed to these walls, this floor, this child. The refrigerator hummed its tired mechanical protest in the corner, its interior a wasteland, a bottle of hot sauce, instant noodles that wouldn't feed Amira, 3 diapers left in the package. The digital clock on the microwave blinked 11:47 p.m. Each number, a accusation. Rent was due in 3 days. Her paycheck from the 24-hour diner, delayed again by management's accounting error, existed only as a promise. Maya checked her phone, $23.76 in her account, $23.76 between her daughter and hunger. She had diluted Amira's last bottle that evening, stretching the formula with extra water, whispering lies in the dark. "It's enough, baby. Mama's got you." But the guilt sat heavy in her chest, a stone she couldn't swallow. Amira deserved better than a mother who couldn't even keep formula on the shelf. Pride was a luxury Maya had pawned months ago, somewhere between the utility disconnection notice and the final warning from her landlord. Her thumb hovered over her contacts, landing on the name she'd been avoiding, Derek, her cousin. He worked the graveyard shift at a warehouse in Decatur, a man stretched thin by his own family, his own bills, but family nonetheless. He'd helped before, always with a sigh that said more than words. Her chest tightened as she typed the message, each word a small surrender. "Here, Derek, for Amira's formula. Please grab it before the store closes. I owe you." She attached the payment, $23.76, everything she had, and hit send before shame could stop her. The confirmation appeared immediately. Payment sent. Relief flickered for exactly 4 seconds. Then her eyes caught the phone number at the top of the screen, and her breath stopped. The last 2 digits were wrong. Not Derek's 42, someone else's 24. Her stomach dropped, a sickening freefall. "No, no, no, no." The word came out as a whisper, then a plea. Her fingers flew across the screen, pulling up the transaction, but it was already complete, already gone. $23.76, sent to a stranger. The room tilted. Maya pressed her palms to her eyes, pressure building behind them like a scream she couldn't release. In her crib, Amira stirred, sensing her mother's distress with that uncanny infant intuition, and began to cry, a thin, reedy sound that pierced straight through Maya's heart. Outside, thunder cracked over Atlanta like the world breaking open. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and typed frantically, "I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore this." The message sent into the void. Maya tossed the phone onto the couch cushions as if distance could undo the mistake. She pulled a threadbare blanket around her shoulders, a shield against nothing, and moved to Amira's crib, lifting her daughter with the careful tenderness of someone carrying the only thing in the world that mattered. "I'm sorry," she whispered into Amira's soft curls. "Mama messed up, but we'll be okay. We always are." The lie tasted bitter. What Maya couldn't know, what she had no way of knowing, was that 900 miles away, in a glass-walled penthouse overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline, the man who had just received her $23.76 was staring at his phone with an expression his assistant hadn't seen in 6 years. Ethan Cole was a name that opened doors in boardrooms from Silicon Valley to Wall Street. At 38, the founder and CEO of Cole Ventures had built an empire from venture capital, his Midas touch turning startups into unicorns, his instincts for innovation legendary in tech circles. His penthouse on the 62nd floor of a Tribeca high-rise was a temple of minimalist wealth, floor-to-ceiling windows, custom Italian furniture, art that cost more than most people's houses. It was also the loneliest place on earth. Ethan stood at those windows now, his reflection ghosting against the city lights. A man dressed in $1,000 casual wear who looked like he'd forgotten how to be comfortable in his own skin. His dark hair, silvering at the temples, was disheveled from running his hands through it during another late-night conference call with Tokyo. His hazel eyes, sharp enough to dissect balance sheets and read startup founders like books, carried a weariness that money couldn't touch. The penthouse was silent, except for the ambient hum of climate control and the distant siren song of the city below. No footsteps, no laughter, no life. 6 years ago, there had been life here. His wife, Catherine, had filled these rooms with warmth, with music, with plans. They were going to have a baby. The nursery was half-painted when the drunk driver ran the red light at Columbus Circle. Catherine died on impact. So did their unborn daughter, Grace, a name they'd chosen together, a future they'd never meet. Ethan had built Cole Ventures in the aftermath, pouring his grief into work until he'd become what the business world called a success, and what he privately knew was just expensive distraction. He funded startups that solved problems. He wrote checks that changed lives. But he did it all from behind walls of glass and steel, keeping the world at arm's length where it couldn't hurt him again. His private phone, a number known only to his attorney, his financial advisor, and his estranged younger sister, sat on the marble kitchen island. It buzzed once. Ethan almost ignored it. He'd been about to pour his nightly scotch, his ritual before another sleepless night in a bed too large for one person. But something made him pick it up. A notification glowed on the screen. Payment received, $23.76 from Maya Brooks. His brow furrowed. He didn't know any Maya Brooks. There was a message attached. Here, Derek, for Amira's formula. Please grab it before the store closes. I owe you. Ethan read it once, twice, 3 times. Formula, a baby, a mother sending her last money to someone she thought she could trust. His thumb hovered over the delete option. Mistakes happened. Wrong numbers were common. This wasn't his problem, but the words wouldn't let him go. For Amira's formula, the desperation hidden in casual language. I owe you, the weight of constant debt to others. Please, grab it before the store closes. The time pressure of a mother running out of options. Ethan's jaw tightened. He thought of Grace, the daughter he'd never held. He thought of Catherine, who used to volunteer at family shelters before she died, who would have given her last dollar to a stranger without hesitation. His phone buzzed again. I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore this. The apology made it worse somehow. He could feel her panic through the screen, her embarrassment, her fear. A mother who'd just lost money she couldn't afford to lose, sending it into the void by accident. Ethan set down his phone and walked to the window. The city's lights blurring slightly. When was the last time he'd felt anything beyond the numbness? When was the last time someone's pain had reached him through all the layers of wealth and protection he'd wrapped around himself? He returned to his phone and opened his banking app. His fingers moved before his analytical mind could intervene with all the logical reasons not to get involved. He typed in Maya Brooks's information from the payment notification. He hesitated over the amount, then made a decision that surprised even him. $20,000. He added a message. You sent this to the wrong number. But it sounds like you need it more than I do. He hit send before he could reconsider. For a moment, Ethan stood in the cathedral of his loneliness, staring at his phone like it was a portal to a world he'd forgotten existed. Then he set it down, poured his scotch, and walked back to the window. The rain had started in New York too, soft against the glass. Back in Atlanta, Maya had finally gotten Amira to sleep. She'd rocked her daughter until her own arms ached, singing off-key lullabies, making promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Now she sat on the edge of the couch, her phone face down beside her, trying not to think about the $23.76 she'd never see again. The phone buzzed. She almost didn't look. Whatever response came, if any came, would just be more embarrassment to wade through. But curiosity, that dangerous human instinct, made her reach for it. The notification made her blink. Payment received, $20,000 from Ethan Cole. Her brain short-circuited. $20,000? That couldn't be right. It had to be a glitch, a scam, some kind of cruel joke the universe was playing on a woman who'd already lost her sense of humor. She opened her banking app with trembling fingers, certain the numbers would rearrange themselves into something sensible. They didn't. $20,023.76. Her account, which had been $23,076 an hour ago, now showed a balance that she hadn't seen since before Amira was born, since before everything fell apart. Below the transaction was a message. You sent this to the wrong number, but it sounds like you need it more than I do. Maya's vision blurred. She refreshed the app twice, 3 times, as if repetition would reveal the truth. But the numbers stayed solid, real, impossible. Her fingers moved on autopilot, typing a response through tears she didn't remember starting to cry. This is too much. I only needed $23.76. The reply came within seconds, as if he'd been waiting. It's already yours, no strings, one less thing to worry about. Something broke in Maya then, not broke like shattering, but broke like a dam giving way. She hadn't cried when Amira's father walked out during her pregnancy, claiming he wasn't ready for that responsibility. She hadn't cried when her nursing program advisor told her she'd have to withdraw due to unpaid tuition. She hadn't cried through the eviction notices, the disconnection warnings, the slow, grinding erosion of every plan she'd ever made. But this unasked-for kindness from a stranger shattered her carefully maintained composure. She pressed her hands to her face, sobbing as quietly as she could, not wanting to wake Amira. The money sat in her account like a living thing, proof that somewhere in the world, someone had seen her desperation and chosen compassion over indifference. Who was this man? This Ethan Cole who gave away $20,000 like it was pocket change? Through her tears, Maya typed one more message. Why would you do this? His response came after a longer pause this time, as if he'd been considering how much to reveal. Because someone should have done it for me once, and because Amira deserves a chance. Maya clutched her phone to her chest, her heart hammering. The rain outside had softened to a whisper, the storm passing as quickly as it had arrived. In her crib, Amira slept peacefully, unaware that their world had just tilted on its axis. In New York, Ethan stood at his window, the untouched scotch in his hand, staring at Maya's question on his screen. Why would you do this? He didn't know how to explain that her message, that accidental plea for help, had done something he thought impossible. It had made him feel human again. It had reminded him that beneath the billionaire, beneath the grief, beneath the carefully constructed walls, he was still someone who remembered what it felt like to be desperate and alone. He typed one final message before setting down his phone for the night. Take care of Amira. Then he turned away from the window, from the city, from the unexpected connection humming between two strangers in the digital dark. Morning broke over Atlanta with reluctant sunshine, the kind that filtered through lingering clouds like a promise the city wasn't quite ready to believe. Maya woke on the couch, her neck stiff, her phone still clutched in her hand. For a disorienting moment, she thought the night before had been a dream, a stress-induced hallucination brought on by too little sleep and too much worry. Then she opened her banking app. $20,023.76. Real, solid, terrifyingly real. Amira babbled from her crib, her morning sounds pulling Maya back into motion. She changed her daughter's diaper, only 2 left now, but that didn't matter anymore because she could buy more, and settled her into the high chair with the last of the instant oatmeal. Maya sat at the scarred kitchen table, her chin resting in her palm, staring at her phone like it held the answers to questions she didn't know how to ask. Who was Ethan Cole? Why did he have $20,000 to give away on impulse? What did he want from her? Because people didn't do things like this without wanting something. Her reflection in the cracked mirror above the sink showed a woman caught between gratitude and suspicion, between hope and the hard-earned wisdom that kindness always came with a price. She hadn't survived this long by being naive. Her phone buzzed with a new message, and her heart jumped. I hope Amira slept well. The words were simple, almost casual, but they settled in Maya's chest like a foreign object. He'd remembered her daughter's name. He'd asked about her. Maya's fingers hovered over the keyboard, torn between responding and blocking the number entirely. Self-preservation screamed at her to walk away, to return the money, to slam the door on whatever this was before it became complicated. But another part of her, smaller, quieter, but growing, wanted to know, needed to know. Who was this man who'd sent $20,000 to a stranger? What kind of person did that? She typed carefully, her words a test. She did. Thank you, but I need to know why you're doing this. The response came quickly, and in its simplicity, Maya heard something she recognized, the sound of someone who understood. I've known what it's like to have nothing, and no one should go through that alone. Maya stared at those words, at the vulnerability hidden in their straightforwardness. In the high chair, Amira smacked her tiny palms on the tray, demanding attention, demanding life, demanding the future Maya was suddenly able to give her. She looked at the $20,000 in her account, enough for rent, formula, diapers, maybe even a few months of breathing room, enough to stop drowning and start swimming. Then she looked at the name on her screen. Ethan Cole. A wrong number. A mistake. A lifeline thrown across 900 miles of distance by a stranger who signed his messages with kindness instead of demands. Maya didn't know it yet, but this wasn't the end of an accidental encounter. It was the beginning of something that would test everything she believed about trust, worthiness, and the possibility of human connection in a world that had taught her to expect nothing. Hello, family and friends. If you're already hooked to this story, please take a second to subscribe, like this video, and share it with your loved ones. It truly helps the channel grow. And before we continue, drop a comment below telling me what time you're watching and where you're watching from. I love seeing where my amazing viewers are tuning in from. Thank you for being here. Now, let's continue with the story. Who was Maya Brooks before this moment? A woman who once believed education could build bridges out of poverty. A nursing student with a 3.8 GPA who'd mapped out her future in careful detail. Graduate, work pediatrics, give Amira the life Maya never had. But life had other plans. Amira's father disappeared before the first ultrasound. Tuition bills became insurmountable mountains. Dreams became luxuries she couldn't afford. And who was Ethan Cole? In his Manhattan penthouse, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the city into a canvas of light, Ethan stood alone in a space designed for living but perfected for loneliness. At 38, he'd built an empire from vision and venture capital, his name whispered in boardrooms with reverence. Cole Ventures had launched 18 successful startups. His net worth appeared on Forbes lists. His insights moved markets. None of it meant anything. The penthouse reflected his internal landscape, beautiful, expensive, hollow. A Steinway piano sat in the corner, its keys untouched since Catherine died. She used to play Chopin on Sunday mornings, the music filling spaces that now held only silence. On the mantel above a fireplace that had never been lit stood a single framed photograph, an ultrasound image, their daughter Grace, frozen at 20 weeks. They'd painted her nursery pale yellow. Ethan had assembled the crib himself, reading instructions with the same meticulous focus he brought to million-dollar deals. The drunk driver didn't just kill Catherine and Grace that night 6 years ago. He killed the version of Ethan who believed the world was fundamentally good, who thought money could protect the people you loved, who understood how to be something other than professionally successful and emotionally numb. Since then, Ethan had perfected the art of controlled isolation. He attended galas but left early. He dated occasionally but never seriously. His dining table, a $12,000 slab of walnut, had never hosted more than one place setting. His therapist called it self-protective detachment. Ethan called it survival. Until Maya's message arrived, for Amira's formula. Those 3 words had cracked something in the carefully constructed fortress of his indifference. He'd read them obsessively after sending the $20,000, replaying them like Catherine's music, a melody from a world he'd forgotten existed. A mother desperate to feed her child, a woman who'd sent everything she had to someone she trusted, only to lose it to a stranger. Ethan understood desperation. He'd felt it in the hospital corridor when the doctor said, "I'm sorry, we did everything we could." He'd felt it every morning since, waking to realize Catherine was still gone. But Maya's desperation was different. It wasn't about loss, it was about survival, about fighting. About getting up at midnight to count coins because a tiny human depended on you. He'd sent the money not out of pity, but because somewhere beneath the billionaire, beneath the grief-hardened exterior, a part of him remembered what it felt like to care about something beyond the next deal, the next acquisition, the next empty achievement. When his phone buzzed again, Ethan's pulse quickened. a sensation so foreign he almost didn't recognize it as anticipation. "I can't accept this. I only wanted to feed my baby." The message was sharp, proud, defensive. Maya wasn't grateful. She was angry. She didn't want his charity. She wanted her $23.76 back and her dignity intact. Ethan smiled for the first time in weeks, a real smile, not the professional mask he wore for investors. He understood pride. It was one of the few things money couldn't buy or break. She could have kept the $20,000 silently, justified it as cosmic compensation for hard times. Instead, she was refusing it, protecting something more valuable than money, her sense of self. His fingers moved across the screen, typing words he hadn't planned. Feed her anyway, then decide. Simple, direct, no pressure, no strings, no expectation of gratitude. Just permission to accept help without surrendering pride. Ethan set his phone down and walked to the window. The city pulsed below, millions of people living their separate lives, most of them strangers who would never intersect. Yet somehow, across 900 miles in two different worlds, Maya Brooks's mistake had found him at the exact moment he needed to be found. He thought of Catherine, of how she used to volunteer at family shelters, how she'd believed wealth was responsibility, not reward. "We have so much," she'd said once, lying in his arms in this same penthouse. "Doesn't that mean we should do something that matters?" Ethan had built companies, funded innovations, written checks to charities, but none of it had felt like it mattered. Not like this, not like knowing that somewhere in Atlanta a mother could finally breathe, could feed her daughter, could sleep without the crushing weight of impossible mathematics. He picked up his phone one more time, typing a message he knew was crossing a line from anonymous charity into something more personal. "Take care of Amira." Then he set it down and stood in the silence of his expensive solitude, feeling something he hadn't felt since Catherine died. It had been years since Ethan Cole felt seen. Now, through a stranger's desperation, he felt human again. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in the dark, listening to Amira's soft breathing through the baby monitor, staring at her phone screen until the numbers burned into her retinas. 20,000 to 2376. The money sat in her account like a ticking bomb, too much to ignore, too significant to accept without consequence. Every instinct screamed that accepting charity would cost her something she couldn't afford to lose: her independence, her dignity, the hard-won knowledge that she'd survived on her own terms. She'd already lost so much. 3 years ago, Maya Brooks had been someone different. She'd sat in the front row of anatomy lectures at Georgia State, her notebooks color-coded, her future mapped with the precision of someone who believed hard work conquered circumstance. She was going to be a pediatric nurse, not because it paid well, but because she'd spent her own childhood in and out of hospitals with asthma, treated by nurses who'd made her feel safe when the world was terrifying. Then came Marcus. She'd met him at a campus party junior year, charming, ambitious, a business major with big dreams and bigger promises. When she got pregnant, he'd said all the right things initially. "We'll figure it out together." But figuring it out meant Maya's morning sickness during clinical rotations, meant falling behind on coursework, meant choosing between prenatal vitamins and textbooks. Marcus left 3 weeks before Amira was born, his parting words delivered via text. "I'm not ready to be anyone's father. You should have been more careful." Maya had been careful. Careful with birth control, careful with her future, careful with her heart. None of it had mattered. She'd withdrawn from nursing school in her final year, so close to finishing she could taste it, because unpaid tuition and single motherhood didn't leave room for dreams. That was 2 years ago. Since then, she'd survived on diner tips, food stamps, and the kind of exhausting resourcefulness that poverty demanded. She'd become an expert in making nothing stretch into something, in smiling through humiliation, in counting coins at midnight. And now, a stranger had handed her $20,000 like it meant nothing, except it meant everything. At 9:47 a.m., while Maya was feeding Amira mashed bananas and wrestling with the moral calculus of accepting help, her phone rang. Unknown number, New York area code. Her heart lurched. She almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail and preserve the distance between them. But curiosity, that dangerous human impulse, made her thumb hit accept. "Hello? Ms. Brooks?" The voice was male, cultured, with a warmth that surprised her, not the cold efficiency she'd expected from a billionaire. "This is Ethan Cole. I hope I'm not calling too early." Maya's breath caught. She'd half convinced herself he wasn't real, just some elaborate scam that would unravel any moment, but his voice made him tangible, human. "Mr. Cole." Her own voice came out steadier than she felt. Thank you, but I still don't understand why you did this." "Honestly?" A pause. "Neither do I entirely, but I'd like to if you'd let me. Would you be willing to meet? Just coffee, no expectations." The request hung between them, loaded with implications Maya wasn't ready to unpack. "Meet? Why would you want to meet me?" "Because—" He hesitated, and Maya heard something vulnerable in that pause. "Because your message reminded me that people still need each other, and I think I needed that reminder." The honesty disarmed her. She'd expected patronizing charity or awkward pity. Instead, he sounded almost lonely. "This isn't some kind of—" Maya stopped, unsure how to phrase it. "I'm not looking for anything beyond saying thank you in person." "I'm not either," Ethan said quickly. "This isn't a date, Ms. Brooks. It's just two people who stumbled into each other's lives by accident, trying to make sense of it." Maya looked at Amira, banana smeared across her delighted face, and felt the weight of decision pressing down. Every survival instinct said no, but something else, something quieter, whispered that maybe, just maybe, not everyone was Marcus, not everyone left. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Coffee, but somewhere public, and I'm bringing my daughter." "I wouldn't have it any other way." The relief in his voice was palpable. "There's a cafe in Atlanta, Midtown near Piedmont Park. Would Saturday work?" They agreed on details and said awkward goodbyes. Maya set down her phone, stunned by what she'd just agreed to. In New York, Ethan ended the call and stood motionless in his office, his heart racing with something between anticipation and anxiety. Through the glass walls, he saw Diana Chen, his executive assistant of 4 years, watching him with narrowed eyes. She didn't wait for an invitation before entering. "That was personal." It was. Diana crossed her arms, her expression skeptical. "Ethan, I've watched 3 different women try to accidentally bump into you with sob stories. The actress whose charity needed funding, the entrepreneur whose startup was just one investment away, This is different. That's what you said about Diana." His voice was firm but not unkind. "I know you're protecting me, but Maya Brooks didn't ask for anything. She tried to return the money." Diana's expression softened slightly, but suspicion remained. "People are very good at playing hard to get when they know it works. Just be careful. You've been hurt enough." After she left, Ethan stood at his window, watching the city move below. Diana was right to be cautious. His wealth had made him a target before. But something about Maya's angry refusal, her fierce pride, felt authentic in a way nothing else had in years. He picked up his phone and did something he hadn't done in 6 years. He canceled his afternoon meetings. All of them. By Saturday morning, Maya had tried on everything in her closet twice. Nothing looked right. Everything either too shabby or too obviously trying too hard. Finally, her neighbor Rosa, a grandmother who'd watched Amira in emergencies, loaned her a simple navy blouse that actually fit. "You look beautiful, Mija," Rosa said, squeezing Maya's hand. "And be open. Good things can happen to good people." Maya wanted to believe her. In New York, Ethan dressed carefully, not the tailored armor he wore to board meetings, but jeans and a simple button-down. He wanted to look approachable, human. He caught his reflection and barely recognized the man staring back, nervous, hopeful, alive. His driver waited downstairs. The private jet was fueled. He'd cleared his entire weekend. For 2 people from worlds apart, one mistake was about to change everything they believed about chance. The cafe sat on a tree-lined street in Midtown Atlanta, the kind of place where art students typed on laptops and mothers pushed strollers through dappled afternoon sunlight. Maya arrived 15 minutes early. Amira strapped to her chest in a second-hand carrier and immediately spotted him through the window. Ethan Cole sat at a corner table, his phone in his hand, staring at the screen with an intensity that made her stomach flip. Even from outside, she could see he was reading something, probably her message, probably dissecting every word for meaning the way she'd been dissecting his motives all week. He looked different than his Forbes profile photos, less polished, more human. His dark hair was slightly tousled, his jaw shadowed with weekend stubble, and he wore jeans, actual jeans, with a gray Henley that probably cost more than her rent but didn't announce it. Maya smoothed Rose's borrowed navy blouse, suddenly hyper-aware of the small snag near the hem, the way her jeans were faded from too many washes, the scuffed flats she'd cleaned with a wet paper towel. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who'd borrowed confidence along with the shirt. Amira squirmed against her chest, making small cooing sounds that drew smiles from passing strangers. Maya kissed her daughter's head, drawing strength from that tiny heartbeat against hers, and pushed open the cafe door. Ethan looked up immediately, as if he'd been waiting for that exact moment. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Recognition, nervousness, the strange intimacy of two people who'd shared vulnerability before sharing names. He stood, and Maya noticed he was tall but not intimidating, his movements careful, measured. "Ms. Brooks." "Maya," she corrected, walking over with Amira providing both shield and courage. "Ms. Brooks makes me sound like I have my life together." A smile tugged at his lips, genuine, not the practiced charm she'd braced herself for. "Ethan." "Though I'm pretty sure we're past formalities after the week we've had." She sat across from him, adjusting Amira in her lap. The baby stared at Ethan with wide, curious eyes, and Maya watched something soften in his expression, a fleeting shadow of pain quickly masked. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. "She's the reason I'm here." Maya's tone came out more defensive than intended. "I want you to know I'm only accepting this meeting to say thank you properly. I'm still planning to pay you back." Ethan leaned back, his hazel eyes studying her with an intensity that should have felt invasive but somehow didn't. "All $20,000? "Eventually, yes." Maya lifted her chin, refusing to feel ashamed of an impossible promise. "At your diner wages, that would take—" "I know how long it would take," she interrupted, heat rising to her cheeks. "I'm not stupid, Mr. Cole. I know exactly how broke I am. You don't need to do the math for me." Silence stretched between them, and Maya braced for dismissal, for condescension, for the inevitable moment when he'd remind her that pride was a luxury poor people couldn't afford. Instead, Ethan smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. "I wasn't going to. I was going to say that at diner wages, paying back $20,000 would take years, which means you'd be tied to this obligation forever." "That sounds exhausting." Maya blinked, thrown by his logic. "So, what? You just want me to forget about it?" "I want you to use it," he said simply. "For Amira. For rent. For breathing room. For whatever you need to stop drowning long enough to swim." The words hit her harder than she expected. Stop drowning long enough to swim. When was the last time anyone had understood that distinction? "Why do you care?" The question came out barely above a whisper. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Ethan was quiet for a moment, his gaze drifting to Amira, then back to Maya. "My wife used to volunteer at family shelters," he said finally. "She believed that people don't fail because they're not trying hard enough. They fail because the system is designed to keep them failing. She'd see women like you working 3 jobs, doing everything right, and still losing ground." He paused. "She died 6 years ago. Car accident. She was pregnant." Maya's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry." "So am I." His voice was steady, but Maya heard the grief underneath. "I've spent 6 years writing checks to foundations, funding initiatives, doing everything Catherine believed in, but it's always felt distant, like I was going through the motions." He met her eyes. "Your message was the first time in years I felt like I was actually helping a real person, not just a statistic." Maya processed this, her defenses warring with empathy. "So this is about your grief?" "Maybe," Ethan admitted, "but it's also about you. You sent your last $23.76 to feed your daughter." "That's not someone who needs a handout. That's someone who needs an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" Maya asked warily. Ethan leaned forward, and she saw the businessman emerge, focused, purposeful. I run a foundation, Cole Cares. It focuses on family support services, particularly single-parent households. We fund programs, but honestly, they're not as effective as they should be. You know why? Maya shook her head. Because they're designed by people who've never lived it, social workers with theories, administrators with data, but no one who actually knows what it's like to count coins at midnight. He paused. I want to hire you to help redesign our programs. Use your experience to make them actually work. Maya stared at him, certain she'd misheard. You want to hire me? I dropped out of nursing school. I have no credentials. No. You have the only credential that matters, Ethan interrupted. You've survived. You know what single mothers actually need because you are one. That's worth more than any degree. I don't take handouts, Maya said firmly. I don't give handouts. Ethan's response was immediate, his tone gentle but resolute. I build bridges. This is a job with a salary, expectations, accountability. You'll earn every dollar. Maya looked down at Amira, then back at Ethan. Part of her wanted to refuse, to maintain the walls that had protected her through Marcus's abandonment and poverty's grinding humiliation. But another part, the part that still remembered dreaming, still remembered believing in possibilities, whispered that maybe not everyone was trying to break her. I need to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Ethan pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. Take all the time you need. But Maya, he waited until she met his eyes. You deserve a chance, not because I gave you money, but because you've been fighting for one all along. They parted on the sun-drenched sidewalk, Amira dozing against Maya's chest, Ethan watching them walk away with an expression Maya couldn't quite decipher, something between hope and healing. Neither of them knew it yet, but this wasn't charity. It was destiny disguised as kindness. 3 months later, Maya Brooks stood in the conference room of Cole Cares Foundation's Atlanta headquarters, presenting revised intake protocols to a room full of social workers and program directors who'd been doing this work longer than she'd been alive. The problem isn't that families don't want help, she said, clicking to the next slide. It's that our application process treats poverty like a test you can fail. 16 pages of documentation, bank statements going back 6 months. Most single parents are working multiple jobs. They don't have time to gather paperwork. They need food today, not after a 4-week verification process. She'd been nervous that first day, walking into the gleaming office building in Buckhead, certain someone would realize she didn't belong. But Ethan had introduced her simply. This is Maya Brooks, our new Director of Family Services. She'll be redesigning how we actually help people. No mention of the $20,000, no mention of the wrong number that had brought them together, just her name and her purpose. Now, watching the room full of professionals nod in agreement with her proposals, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in years: competence, pride, the bone-deep satisfaction of work that mattered. After the meeting, Ethan caught her in the hallway, his expression pleased. You're making them uncomfortable. That's good. I'm making myself uncomfortable, Maya admitted, clutching her notes. Half of them have master's degrees. I'm a college dropout with opinions. You're a college dropout with experience. There's a difference. He gestured toward his office. Got a minute? She followed him into the corner suite, all glass and minimalist furniture so different from the cramped spaces she'd known. But what caught her attention was the sound filtering through the open door to the adjoining conference room, Amira's delighted laughter. The foundation had a small daycare for employees' children, but Ethan had insisted on setting up a play area near his office specifically for Amira. So you don't have to choose between work and watching her, he'd said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world for a billionaire CEO to accommodate a single mother's childcare needs. Now, through the glass partition, Maya could see her daughter stacking colorful blocks with one of the daycare assistants, her curls bouncing with each triumphant addition to her tower. She's getting so big, Ethan said softly, and Maya caught that familiar shadow crossing his face, the ghost of the daughter he'd never met. She asks about you, Maya said. Well, not in words, but she lights up when we come here. I think she knows you're safe. Ethan's throat worked. Catherine would have loved her. It was the first time he'd shared his wife's name so casually, as if Maya had earned the right to hold that piece of his grief. Their friendship had formed gradually over these 3 months, in shared lunches where they talked about program budgets and past dreams, in quiet moments when Amira would toddle into his office and he'd abandon conference calls to watch her explore, in the easy rhythm of two people who'd survived loss and recognized that survival in each other. It wasn't romance, neither of them was ready for that. But it was something deeper than professional courtesy, a tenderness born from mutual understanding, from seeing each other's wounds and not looking away. "I need to tell you something," Ethan said, his expression growing serious. "Diana showed me some articles this morning. The media's starting to notice you." Maya's stomach tightened. "What kind of articles?" "The speculative kind." He pulled up a gossip blog on his tablet. The headline read, "Billionaire's new project, Coal Care's director raises eyebrows." Below it, a photo of them leaving the office together, Ethan carrying Amira's diaper bag. Maya's cheeks burned as she scanned the text. Sources say the mysterious Maya Brooks appeared out of nowhere 3 months ago. No advanced degree, unusually close relationship with the reclusive CEO. Is this charity work or something more? "This is what I was afraid of," Maya said quietly. "People thinking I slept my way into this job." "You didn't," Ethan's voice was firm. "You've revolutionized our programs in 3 months. Our approval ratings with families are up 40%. You've earned this position 10 times over. But they don't see that. They see a broke single mother who got lucky." The old shame crept back in, the voice that said she didn't deserve good things, that success was always borrowed, never owned. "Maya, look at me." Ethan waited until she met his eyes. "People will always talk. They said Catherine married me for money, that I built my company on luck, that grief made me unstable. None of it was true and none of it mattered. What matters is the work, the families we're helping, the changes you're making. Easy for you to say. You're not the one they're calling a gold digger in the comments section." His jaw tightened. "Then they're idiots who don't deserve your energy." But the damage was done. Maya felt it in the hallway whispers that stopped when she approached. In the way some staff members suddenly treated her with cool professionalism instead of warmth. The boss's pet project, the new woman in his life. Over the following weeks, the gossip intensified. A local business magazine ran a profile on Ethan that included a sidebar about his controversial hiring practices. Maya's photo appeared alongside speculation about their relationship. She considered quitting daily. Pride demanded it. But every time she walked through the foundation's doors and saw the families her revised programs were helping, the single mothers who no longer had to jump through impossible hoops, the children who got food and diapers without weeks of bureaucratic delay, she remembered why she'd taken the job. Still, the weight of judgment wore on her. One evening, long after most staff had left, Maya sat in her small office reviewing case files. Ethan knocked softly, carrying 2 cups of coffee, her order memorized after months of late nights working together. "You're doing it again," he said, setting a cup on her desk. "Doing what?" "Carrying the world alone." He settled into the chair across from her. "Talk to me." Maya's defenses crumbled. "I hate that they think I'm using you. I hate that they see Amira and assume I'm some charity case who got lucky. I hate that everything I've worked for gets reduced to gossip and speculation." "I know." Ethan's voice was gentle. "But Maya, the people who matter, the families we help, the team members who actually see your work, they know the truth. The rest is just noise. Loud noise. True, but noise nonetheless." He paused, his expression shifting to something vulnerable. "For what it's worth, you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever." "What's that?" "Purpose that feels personal again. Catherine used to say I was at my best when I was building things that mattered, not just making money. These past 3 months, working with you, seeing the programs come to life," his voice caught slightly, "I feel like I'm honoring her memory instead of just haunting it." Maya's throat tightened. In that moment, she understood that their friendship wasn't just about her healing, it was about his too. 2 broken people helping each other remember how to be whole. Amira's babbling echoed from the daycare room, a reminder of innocence and possibility. For the first time in years, Ethan smiled not because he was winning, but because he was healing. The text arrived on a Tuesday morning while Maya was reviewing grant applications, Amira playing with blocks at her feet in the office. Unknown number, local area code. You don't belong in his world. You're just a headline waiting to happen. Maya's blood went cold. She stared at the words, reading them over and over until they blurred. Her hands trembled as she set the phone face down on her desk, as if not seeing it could make it untrue. But the damage was done. The message had found the crack in her armor, the voice she'd been fighting since the day she accepted this job, the whisper that said she was an imposter, that good things didn't happen to people like her without a price. By lunch, a second message arrived. Everyone knows you're just his charity case. How long until he gets bored? Maya's chest constricted. She looked around her office, the desk she'd earned, the programs she'd built, the families she'd helped, and suddenly it all felt borrowed, temporary, a kindness that could be revoked the moment she stopped being interesting. She'd survived Marcus's abandonment. She'd survived poverty and shame and midnight coin counting. But this public dismantling of her worth, this reduction of her competence to proximity, threatened something deeper. It threatened the fragile belief that she could be more than her circumstances. That night, Maya drafted her resignation letter. Professional, brief, no explanation beyond personal reasons. She'd lasted 4 months, longer than she'd expected, honestly. At least Amira had benefited, the daycare, the stability, the $20,000 that had bought them breathing room. She could go back to the diner, survive. That's what she did best. The letter sat on her desk the next morning, sealed in an envelope with Ethan's name written in her careful handwriting. She planned to leave it with his assistant Diana and disappear before he could talk her out of it. But Ethan was already in her office when she arrived, standing by the window with his arms crossed, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it. "You're quitting." Not a question. An accusation. Maya froze in the doorway, Amira drowsy against her shoulder. "How did you—" "Diana intercepted your letter. She thought I should see it before you made a mistake." He turned to face her, and Maya saw something fierce in his eyes, not anger at her, but for her. "You're really going to let anonymous cowards win?" "It's not about winning," Maya said quietly, setting her bag down. "It's about reality. I don't belong here, Ethan. Everyone knows it. I'm the broke single mom who got lucky, and eventually that luck runs out." "That's not luck. It's work." His voice rose, controlled fury cutting through his usual calm. "You've transformed this foundation in 4 months. Our family satisfaction scores are the highest they've ever been. 3 other nonprofits have asked to model their programs on yours. That's not charity, Maya. That's excellence. Built on a foundation of gossip and speculation." She gestured helplessly. "People think I'm sleeping with you to keep my job. They think Amira is some kind of emotional manipulation. I won't be that woman." Ethan crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his hazel eyes, the tension in his jaw. "You've worked for this position. You've earned every dollar, every success, every change you've implemented. Don't let their cruelty steal what you've built." "Why do you care so much?" The question burst out before Maya could stop it. "Why does it matter to you whether I stay or go?" The question hung between them, loaded with months of unspoken tension, of boundaries carefully maintained, of feelings neither had been ready to name. Ethan's expression shifted, the billionaire mask falling away, leaving only the man beneath. "Because you remind me that life can still surprise me. Because watching you fight reminds me why fighting matters." His voice dropped. "Because for the first time since Catherine died, I wake up and feel like I have a reason beyond just not stopping." Maya's breath caught. "Ethan." "I'm not finished." He ran a hand through his hair. Frustration and vulnerability warring in his features. "I'm not the billionaire saving you, Maya. You saved me. You walked into my sterile, empty world and made it feel human again, made me feel human again. So yes, I care whether you stay. I care more than I probably should." Silence filled the office, broken only by Amira's soft breathing and the distant hum of the city beyond the windows. Maya felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of being truly seen. Not as a charity case, not as a project, but as a person whose presence mattered beyond utility. "I'm terrified," she whispered, "of losing this, of it all being temporary. I've lost so much already. Marcus, my education, every plan I ever made. I don't know if I can survive losing this too." Ethan's expression softened. "I understand that fear. After Catherine died, I spent 6 years making sure I couldn't lose anything else. I stopped letting people in, stopped caring about anything that could hurt me." He paused. "But these past 4 months, working with you, watching Amira grow, remembering what it feels like to build something that matters, Maya, you've given me back pieces of myself I thought were gone forever." "How?" Her voice broke on the word. "Because you fight like Catherine fought, with grace and stubbornness and this refusal to let the world tell you what you're worth." He hesitated, then added quietly, "I see my wife's strength in you." Maya's tears spilled over. She thought of Ethan's patience with Amira, the way he'd rearranged his entire office to accommodate her daughter, the quiet dignity with which he treated every family that walked through their doors. She thought of the father Amira had never known, and the man who'd chosen to show up anyway. "I see my daughter's future in you," she said softly. "The kind of person I want her to believe exists in the world. Someone who uses their power to build instead of break." They stood in the fragile space between friendship and something deeper, both carrying losses that had nearly destroyed them, both discovering that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant having the courage to risk caring again. "Stay," Ethan said finally. "Not for me. For yourself. For the families who need you. For Amira, who deserves to see her mother refuse to be diminished." Maya looked down at her daughter, then at the envelope on her desk containing her resignation, then back at Ethan, this man who'd accidentally received her desperate message and chosen compassion over indifference. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll stay." His relief was palpable, and for a moment, Maya saw past the billionaire to the widower who'd spent 6 years in emotional exile, who'd built walls so high even he couldn't see over them, until a $23.76 mistake had shown him the way back. In that fragile silence, 2 broken souls found the courage to stand in the same light. The headline exploded across social media at 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning, detonating Maya's carefully rebuilt life in a single keystroke. "Billionaire sends $20,000 to single mom. Love or laundering?" Below it, a photo Maya had never seen before. Her and Ethan leaving the foundation together, his hand on her lower back as he guided her through the door. Amira visible in her carrier. The image looked intimate, conspiratorial. The accompanying article was worse. Sources close to Cole Ventures reveal that CEO Ethan Cole sent $20,000 to foundation employee Maya Brooks months before hiring her for a 6-figure position. Brooks, 29, a college dropout with outstanding debts and a criminal ex-boyfriend, now has unprecedented access to Cole's finances and personal life. Financial experts question whether the transaction violated nonprofit regulations. Maya read it 3 times, each pass making her feel smaller, dirtier. They dug into everything: her dropped nursing classes, Marcus's arrest record for drug possession 2 years after he'd left her, her eviction notices, her food stamp usage. Her entire life laid bare as evidence of unworthiness. Her phone exploded. Text messages from unknown numbers, voicemails from reporters, emails with subject lines like "your side of the story" and "exclusive interview opportunity." By 8 a.m., news vans lined the street outside her apartment building. Maya peered through the blinds, her heart hammering, Amira mercifully still asleep. 3 reporters stood at her building entrance. 2 more were doing stand-ups with cameras. She was trapped. Her phone rang, Ethan's name on the screen. She answered with shaking hands. "Don't read the comments," he said immediately, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Don't engage with reporters. I'm sending security to your apartment." "Ethan, they know everything about the money, about Marcus, they know nothing that matters." His voice gentled. "Stay inside. I'm handling this." But handling it proved impossible. By noon, the story had gone viral. #Cole Scandal trended on Twitter. Financial journalists questioned the foundation's integrity. Lifestyle bloggers speculated about their relationship. Anonymous accounts shared increasingly cruel takes. She saw a rich mark and played him perfectly. This is what happens when billionaires think with their feelings. Gold Digger 101. At Coal Ventures' downtown headquarters, Ethan faced his board of directors in an emergency meeting. 8 faces around the polished table, most of them skeptical, some openly hostile. You sent $20,000 to an employee before hiring her? Board member Richard Strauss's voice dripped with disdain. Ethan, this looks exactly like the kind of impropriety that destroys organizations. We need damage control. Suspend Ms. Brooks pending investigation. No. Ethan's response was immediate, final. Be reasonable, Patricia Morrison interjected, her tone more diplomatic. The optics are terrible. Until we can verify— There's nothing to verify, Ethan interrupted, his voice carrying the steel that had built his empire. I sent Maya Brooks money before I knew her name because she accidentally sent me a desperate message meant for her cousin. I helped her because that's what decent people do. Then I hired her because she's brilliant at her job. If that's scandalous, the scandal is with the world, not with us. The press is calling it money laundering, Richard pressed. The IRS could let them investigate. They'll find a legal gift from my personal account followed by legitimate employment. Maya has revolutionized our programs. Our impact metrics are the highest they've ever been. I won't punish excellence because people can't imagine competence in someone they've decided doesn't deserve it. The board exchanged glances. Patricia spoke carefully. Ethan, we understand your position. But her background, the debts, the ex-boyfriend's record, are irrelevant to her work. Ethan stood, signaling the meeting was over. Maya Brooks is the director of family services because she earned that position. If anyone on this board has a problem with that, you're welcome to resign. He walked out before they could respond. By evening, reporters had found Maya's neighbor Rosa, her former diner manager, even Marcus, who gave a vile interview claiming Maya had always been looking for a sugar daddy. The character assassination was surgical, thorough, devastating. Maya sat on her couch, Amira finally asleep after sensing her mother's distress all day, and felt the old darkness closing in. Maybe she should resign, disappear, save Ethan and the foundation from this poison. Then her phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Ethan's scheduled a press conference. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., he's going to make a statement. Maya's stomach lurched. He was going to defend her publicly, which would only make things worse. She called him immediately. Don't do this, she said when he answered. Let me resign quietly. This will blow over if I just— No. His voice was granite. I'm not letting them destroy you because they can't understand T-Cincy. Ethan, they're saying I'm a criminal, a con artist. Then we tell the truth, together. Together? Maya's voice cracked. If you're willing, he said quietly. But Maya, you don't have to hide. You didn't do anything wrong. She thought of Amira, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos. She thought of the families at the foundation whose lives had improved because of programs she'd designed. She thought of every person who'd ever told her she was less than, not enough, unworthy. I'll do it, she heard herself say. But on my terms. The press conference was held at the foundation's headquarters, a room packed with reporters, cameras, and hungry anticipation for blood. Ethan stood at the podium first, his statement clear and unwavering. Maya Brooks was an exemplary employee hired on merit. The $20,000 was a personal gift unrelated to her employment, and anyone suggesting impropriety should examine their own biases about who deserves opportunities. Then Maya stepped forward, Amira in her arms, a deliberate choice. Let them see the child they were hurting with their speculation. Her voice shook at first, but grew stronger. My name is Maya Brooks. 4 months ago, I was a single mother working at a diner, counting coins to buy baby formula. I sent $23.76 to the wrong number by accident. Mr. Cole responded with extraordinary kindness. He didn't know me. He didn't want anything from me. He just helped. She paused, meeting the cameras directly. Later, he offered me a job, not because of the money, but because he believed my experience as a single mother made me qualified to redesign family assistance programs. He was right. Our programs now help 3 times as many families with half the bureaucracy. That's not corruption. That's competence. Her voice steadied. My ex-boyfriend has a criminal record. I've been on food stamps. I have debt. None of that makes me less qualified to help families in similar situations. It makes me more qualified. If helping a mother feed her child is corruption, then the world is more broken than I thought. She adjusted a mirror on her hip, the baby's wide eyes surveying the room. I'm not ashamed of needing help. I'm not ashamed of accepting it, and I'm not ashamed of earning a position through hard work. If you find that scandalous, that says everything about you and nothing about me. The room was silent for 3 heartbeats. Then questions erupted, but Maya was already walking away, Ethan at her side, their shoulders almost touching. By evening, the narrative had shifted. Maya's dignity had gone viral, clips of her calm statement shared millions of times. #I stand with, Maya trended. Donations to Cole Cares Foundation tripled overnight. Single mothers across the country shared their own stories of judgment and resilience. The world saw scandal, but Ethan saw courage, and he knew he would never let her stand alone again. The investigation launched by the Georgia Attorney General's office cast a shadow over everything Maya and Ethan had built. For 2 weeks, auditors combed through Cole Cares Foundation's financial records, interviewed staff, and scrutinized every transaction involving Maya Brooks. The foundation's work ground to a halt. Families who depended on their programs waited in limbo. Staff whispered in hallways. Maya came to work each day feeling like a contaminant, aware that her presence was costing the organization she'd worked so hard to improve. Ethan, meanwhile, faced his own reckoning. The board convened another emergency meeting, this time with lawyers present. The optics have become untenable, Richard Strauss announced, his voice carrying the weight of inevitability. We're calling for your resignation as CEO, effective immediately. You can remain as a board member, but your judgment regarding Ms. Brooks has compromised your ability to lead. Ethan looked around the table at faces he'd known for years, people he'd made wealthy through his instincts and leadership. You're asking me to step down from the company I built because I helped someone in need? We're asking you to step down because you let personal feelings cloud professional judgment, Patricia Morrison said, not unkindly. Ethan, we care about you, but this scandal is affecting stock prices, investor confidence. Then let it fall, Ethan interrupted quietly. I'm not sacrificing Maya Brooks to protect stock prices. It's not just about her anymore, Richard pressed. We've received allegations of broader financial misconduct. A whistleblower claims the foundation has been misusing donor funds for months. Ethan went very still. That's a lie. Maybe, but we need to investigate, and we can't do that with you at the helm. Richard slid a document across the table. This is a temporary leave agreement. Sign it, or we'll call for a vote. And Ethan, you won't win. Ethan stared at the paper, at the betrayal dressed up as corporate responsibility, and felt the full weight of what his defense of Maya was costing him. His company, his reputation, everything he'd built since Catherine died. He signed without hesitation. The whistleblower's allegations hit the media the next day, more explosive than the original scandal. Anonymous sources claimed Maya had funneled foundation money to personal accounts, that the programs she'd designed were covers for embezzlement, that Ethan had been complicit or foolishly blind. Maya read the accusations in her apartment, a mirror playing at her feet, and felt something inside her crystallize from fear into fury. Someone was lying, deliberately, systematically destroying everything they'd built. She called Ethan immediately. The financial claims, they're specific, transaction dates, amounts. Whoever leaked this had internal access. I know. His voice was grim. I'm already pulling records. If there's a mole, we'll find them. They worked through the night, Maya at her apartment, Ethan at his penthouse, connected by phone and shared determination. They cross-referenced leaked information with employee access logs, tracked down the source of specific claims, followed the digital breadcrumbs. At 3 a.m., Maya found it. Ethan, her voice was tight with controlled rage. The leaked financial data, it came from an internal audit report that only 3 people had access to. You, Diana, and Marcus Chen, Ethan finished, his tone dark, our financial director. Not Marcus, her ex-boyfriend. A different Marcus, a man who'd been with the foundation for 2 years, who'd always seemed professional, competent. Maya pulled up his employment records and her stomach dropped. He applied to Cole Ventures 6 months ago, she said slowly. Wanted a position in your venture capital arm, was rejected. Right before you were hired, Ethan added, the pieces clicking together. He leaked the story, fabricated the financial misconduct claims. This isn't about you, Maya. It's about destroying me. By dawn, they had their evidence. Emails from Marcus Chen to a rival investor, Jason Whitmore, who'd tried to buy into Cole Ventures twice and been rejected both times. The messages laid out the plan with chilling clarity. Leak the story about Maya, fabricate financial misconduct, force Ethan out, create an opening for Whitmore to acquire the company at a reduced price. Maya stared at the screen, exhaustion and vindication warring in her chest. They were willing to destroy us both for a business opportunity. Corporate warfare, Ethan said bitterly. I've seen it before, just never thought it would use someone I... He stopped abruptly. Someone you what? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. Silence stretched between them, thick with months of careful distance, of feelings neither had dared voice. Someone I care about? Ethan said finally, his voice raw. Maya, I need you to know. It started with 2376. It started with helping a stranger, but somewhere along the way, it became about you, your strength, your integrity, the way you fight for what matters. I'm not protecting the Foundation's director, I'm protecting you. Maya's eyes burned with tears she'd been holding back for weeks. Why? Why risk everything for me? Because you matter, he said simply. Because watching you survive reminded me that survival isn't enough. We're supposed to live. Because, his voice broke slightly, because I haven't felt this alive since Catherine died, and I'm terrified of losing that, losing you. Maya pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. You didn't buy my future, Ethan. You believed I still had one. That's what changed everything. They delivered their evidence to the Attorney General's office that morning. By afternoon, Marcus Chen was arrested for fraud and conspiracy. Jason Whitmore faced multiple investigations. The Foundation was cleared of all wrongdoing. The board, chastened and embarrassed, offered Ethan his position back with profuse apologies. He declined. I'm staying on as board chair, he told them coolly, but the Foundation needs a full-time executive director who understands its mission from the ground up. I'm recommending Maya Brooks for the position. Richard Strauss looked like he'd swallowed glass. Ethan, after everything, she's proven she has more integrity than this entire board combined, Ethan interrupted. Vote however you want, but I know who built this foundation into something that actually matters. The vote was unanimous. Fear of public backlash, perhaps, or maybe recognition of truth. That evening, Maya and Ethan stood on the Foundation's rooftop terrace, Atlanta's skyline glowing in the twilight. Amira dozed in her carrier, exhausted from the day's chaos. Executive Director, Maya said softly. That's terrifying. You've already been doing the job, Ethan pointed out. Now you'll just get paid appropriately. She turned to face him, this man who'd received her desperate message and chosen compassion over convenience, who'd defended her when it cost him everything, who'd somehow become the most important person in her life besides her daughter. I don't know what this is, she admitted. Between us. But Ethan, I'm not running anymore. From judgment, from fear, from whatever this is that makes me feel like I can breathe again. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face with a gentleness that belied his strength. Neither am I. When he kissed her, it wasn't dramatic or passionate. It was tender, tentative, two wounded people discovering that healing could happen together. When the storm cleared, they realized the story had never been about money. It was about the power of mercy. 6 months later, the world had moved on to newer scandals, fresher outrage, more clickable headlines. The storm that had threatened to destroy Maya Brooks and Ethan Cole had passed, leaving behind something unexpected: clarity. Maya stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Cole Cares Foundation's expanded Atlanta headquarters, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over the skyline. The office behind her hummed with the quiet efficiency of an organization that had found its purpose. Intake coordinators processing applications in hours instead of weeks. Case managers connecting families to resources with dignity instead of bureaucracy. Success stories that arrived daily in handwritten thank you notes pinned to the break room bulletin board. She was the executive director now, a title that still felt too large some mornings. But most days, like today, It fit perfectly, earned through competence, worn with pride. Ethan had stepped back from the relentless machinery of Cole Ventures 6 months ago, shocking the business world by appointing a new CEO and transitioning to an advisory role. "I spent 6 years building companies," he'd told the press. "I want to spend the next 6 building a life." Wall Street analysts called it a midlife crisis. Those who knew him understood it was the opposite, a man finally waking up. Now he divided his time between New York and Atlanta, consulting on foundation strategy, but mostly just being present in a way he hadn't allowed himself since Catherine died. Present for board meetings that mattered, present for family intake sessions where he listened to stories that reminded him why wealth was responsibility, not reward. Present for Maya, and present for Amira, who'd just taken her first wobbly steps last month while Ethan watched with tears in his eyes, the tears of a man who'd lost a daughter and found, unexpectedly, a chance to help raise one. The office door opened behind Maya, and she heard the familiar sounds. Amira's delighted babbling, Ethan's low laugh, tiny footsteps pattering across hardwood floors. She turned to see her daughter, 14 months old now, curls bouncing, eyes bright with the fearless curiosity of toddlers, making a determined beeline toward her mother's desk. "She's gotten faster," Maya said, scooping Amira up and settling her on her hip with practiced ease. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, his expression soft with something that still made Maya's heart catch. Not pity, not charity, but simple, uncomplicated affection. "She's determined. Wonder where she gets that." Maya smiled, pressing a kiss to Amira's curls. The baby squirmed, reaching for the colorful blocks stacked on the corner of Maya's desk. The same blocks that had been in Ethan's office that first day, now permanent fixtures wherever Amira played. Outside, Atlanta's skyline blazed against the darkening sky. Inside, silence settled, the comfortable kind that only exists between people who've survived storms together and discovered that calm wasn't the absence of struggle, but the presence of trust. Maya set Amira down gently, watching her toddle back to Ethan with the confidence of a child who'd never known what it meant to not be caught. He crouched to her level immediately, his expensive suit jacket forgotten as Amira grabbed his tie with sticky fingers. "You know," Maya said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of something she'd been thinking for months, "you never had to send that money." Ethan looked up, his hazel eyes meeting hers across the office, two people separated by space but connected by something far more substantial. His smile was gentle, knowing, touched with the wisdom of someone who'd learned that the most valuable things in life arrived by accident. "You're wrong," he said softly, rising with Amira balanced on his arm like he'd been doing it for years instead of months. "I didn't send money, Maya." He walked toward her, each step deliberate, until they stood close enough to share breath, close enough to share history. Amira reached for her mother, and Maya took her, creating a tableau. 3 people who'd found each other through desperation and chose to stay through grace. "I sent hope," Ethan continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "And it found its way back. It brought me you. It brought me her. It brought me a reason to stop haunting my own life and start living it again." Maya's eyes filled with tears she no longer tried to hide. "You gave me more than money. You gave me proof that I was worth believing in." "No," he corrected gently, reaching out to brush a curl from her face, a gesture that had become familiar, cherished. "You always were. I just had the privilege of seeing it first." Amira babbled happily between them, oblivious to the profound simplicity of the moment, 2 broken people who'd learned that healing wasn't about forgetting pain, but about having the courage to trust that joy could follow it. Outside, the city pulsed with millions of separate lives, most of them strangers who would never intersect. But somewhere in that vast urban landscape, another desperate person was probably composing another message, another plea for help that might find its way to exactly the right stranger. Maya leaned her head against Ethan's shoulder, Amira nestled between them, and looked out at Atlanta's glowing skyline. Behind them, the foundation hummed with purpose. Ahead of them stretched a future neither had dared imagine 6 months ago. Uncertain, yes, but no longer lonely. They stood there as twilight deepened into night, silhouettes against the windows, not a conventional family bound by blood or marriage, but something equally powerful. 3 souls connected by chance, mercy, and the radical act of believing that broken things could be made whole. Sometimes, the narrator's voice whispered into the gathering dark, A single act of kindness doesn't just feed a child, it heals two broken hearts and reminds us that we're all one wrong number away from grace. Thank you for staying to the end of this video. I hope you truly enjoyed this work of art. Now, please before you go, help subscribe to this channel, like the video and share with your loved ones. And lastly, don't forget to comment what time it's at your side right now and where you're watching from. Thank you.